And actually, I heard it today on a podcast. They were like, you can't maybe control your first thought, but you can control your second thought. And that's exactly what this is. I say, oh, wait a second. No, I can't do that. Well, wait a minute. Why
Right.
not? Maybe I can. It's empowering because that means that nothing that happens moving forward, the outcome is never completely out of my control. I always have the say. It gave me back my power. What I learned is that I write as I talk. So pretty much I could just take this transcript and that's how I write. And that's it. That's all I have to be is myself.
For Love of Memoir is a place for people who have a passion for human stories. The ones we tell, the ones we carry, and the ones we're still trying to understand. Here, we talk with writers about their life-changing experiences and what it takes to bring those stories onto the page and into the world. Whether you simply love a good story or aspire to write your own, you're in the right place. Hi, Debbie. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me, Erin. I'm thrilled to be here.
Oh, my pleasure. Welcome. I'm really excited to talk about your book on second thought. Maybe I can. I have to tell you, I loved it. I related to it definitely more than I expected going in, all the way from your very first dance class to your weight relationship, particularly with your mom, like really, really hit home with me.
Mm.
So I'm really excited to talk about it.
Thank you, and thank
So,
you.
for those listeners who aren't necessarily familiar with your work, I usually like to just have you kick it off and just give us a summary of what it's about.
Sure. So, this book was became a first-time author, and the memoir is an inspirational story of my life, not with every detail, but some key stories that starts with when I was a child and how I kind of developed some limiting beliefs and whatnot. And then moving on into the middle of my life, facing a lot of different challenges, life challenges, caregiving, infertility, weight struggles, amongst other things. And then an aha moment I had at 50, and now I'm 62. So, talking about what I've done over the past decade or so since I had that aha moment.
Which is where the magic is. So, you come from finance. So, what drew you to memoir? What made you decide you wanted to write a book?
Oh my goodness. I know the funny thing is that I always said that I'm a numbers girl, and never in a million years, like I was that person who in college I would look at the syllabus ahead of time or talk to people and be like, do you have to write a paper in that class? Because if you do, I'm not taking the class. So, yes, I was a
Numbers over words.
Yes, no, for sure. So I was a CPA for 10 years, and now for the last 30 plus years, I've been an insurance agent, also a numbers kind of game, basically, and never wanted to be an author, never thought of it, none of it. And after my aha moment, and I started to go on my journey, and I realized that, wow, I made it to 50 years old, not realizing a lot of things, and I consider myself halfway smart. So there must be other women out there who are like I was. So how do I reach them? What am I going to do? Stand on the top of my roof and, start screaming? And so all the people in kind of like my online world that was new to me said, well, you need to write a book. You need to write a book. And I said, well, there's only one problem. I don't know how to write. So I was like, isn't there such a thing as a ghostwriter? I was just, how much does that cost? And like, it's never happening. And well, you want the whole full-fledged story of how it happened?
Yeah.
Okay. So it had been planted in my head, and I'm thinking, oh, that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. But it kept coming up, right? And one day I was listening to a podcast that I'm not a regular listener to, just an occasional listener, and they were interviewing a woman that helped first-time authors get their stories out there. And listening to her, I felt like she was down to earth. I could really relate to her. And I thought, I'm hearing this for a reason. Like, what are the chances that I listen to this podcast with this woman?
Yeah, this is
So,
how the universe speaks.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I listened to that little whisper. I contacted her and really connected with her. And I had so many doubts and limiting beliefs. One, that I couldn't write. Two, that my story was not impactful enough. And she was a great salesman because she convinced me I was wrong on both counts. And she was launching a small group coaching program to help authors get their stories out there.
Well, and she was right. She's not just a good salesman. I think we underestimate the power of our story, even though sometimes we feel like it might be a bit mundane because we're not celebrities and we don't have these big, extravagant, extraordinary lives. Um, somebody's gonna some likely a lot of people are gonna see themselves in your story. I've read so many memoirs at this point, and in every single one of them, no matter how far this person is off of my energetic path, I still find something. There's still something in their story that I can relate to, or that I can see myself reflected in.
Oh, I love that.
It's powerful.
So I was afraid to join this group because I had all these doubts. And it was expensive. And am I really going to do this? Come on. It sounds great. And I was just about to hit join. And out of the blue, my husband was diagnosed with terminal blood cancer.
Mm.
And he had had it's another part of the story, but he had other things. But this particular diagnosis was surprising. And I was seeing a therapist at the time. And I said to the therapist, well, I was just about to do this, but obviously now is not the right time. And she said, I disagree with you. This is the perfect time. And I looked at her like she was out of her mind. And I said, but I don't know what's going to happen. Everything is uncertain. And what if I can't show up one week? Because we would meet once a week on Zoom. What if there was homework and I didn't do the homework? What if I had to read out loud and they didn't like what I read? And she said, who cares? And I was like, oh, I guess so. I'm so concerned with kind of being that A student that she kind of gave me permission. And she was right. She was right. And I never would have guessed. I don't think anyone would ever think that when your significant other gets diagnosed with terminal cancer, it's the perfect time to learn a new skill.
Mm.
But it is.
I imagine it gave you something to dive into, though.
It did. I mean, it gave me exactly what she said. It gave me something else to focus on.
Mm.
The first 6 weeks or so, I was like, being a little bit of an analytical mind, I needed to really understand. I couldn't just write. I had to understand what is the outline? How is it going to work? Am I going to share messages? Is it just stories? I needed. So until I had that in place for me, what's it called? One's a pantser and one's a what's the other one? Do you know what I'm talking about? There's two different kinds of ways to write. I forget what it is. It's pantser and something else. And one just can write, and the other has to have it organized. Whichever one, I don't remember. I'll have to look it up later. So
Because you're a linear mind, you needed it to be organized.
I needed to
Yep.
be organized. So
Yep.
once I had it organized, and once I think I hit the 10,000 word mark, I was like, oh, maybe I can really do this. And then I did get into it, but I have to say that I did have to be very, very intentional
Mm.
because my life was crazy. And, sometimes my husband was in the hospital and sometimes he wasn't. And sometimes, it was, and
Mm.
I still work and, all the
Sure.
things, right? So I had to schedule and be flexible with my schedule, but really make a point of holding myself accountable and sticking
Mhm.
to the time that,
Yeah,
I
it does take
tried.
some discipline,
Yes,
regardless of how, as a writer, you decide to make that happen. That creating, writing, and then publishing, and then marketing an entire book is, it's not for the undisciplined. It's not for the weak, for sure.
that is for sure.
So the phrase "maybe I can" is served sort of as a turning point for you, and you've alluded to it a little bit, that aha moment. Kind of tell us, what was it?
Well, the aha moment happened when I was 50. Up until that point, I think if you had, at that time in my life looked in from the outside, you'd be like, I live in this beautiful house in this nice neighborhood. I have this small insurance agency. My husband actually worked with me for many, many years and two kids, the whole thing, right? But inside, I was really dying. I had spent all of my adult life caring for different loved ones that had different illnesses.
Mm,
And it started with my father, who had a massive stroke when I was 17. He survived, became permanently disabled. My parents divorced, and I was his caregiver for 30 years. And then my oldest son was diagnosed on the autism spectrum when he was 2. And that's a whole different type of caregiving.
mm.
And at 50, I really wasn't caring for my husband yet. That did come later on, but he was still like having a third child. So I was spread too thin. I was saying yes, I was volunteering. I don't remember at what point I was treasurer of 3 different organizations simultaneously trying to run the family, my father, my office, never taking care of myself. I was burnt out. I was stressed, overwhelmed, ready to blow every second. You say, look at me crooked, and I would freak out. And I don't think that I saw a way out. And then when I turned 50, there was something for me about the number 50 that really hit me. Like 50, that's half a century. One, how could I be 50? Of course, now it sounds great. But then I was like, how could I be 50? And, it went so fast. The next 50 years are going to fly by. And I saw my father die with regrets. My mother often talks about regrets. You hear it all the time, right? People who die with regrets, I think the majority of people. And I didn't want to be that person. But yet, I think a lot of times you say, well, I always wanted to be a writer and I never explored that, or an artist or a musician or something, whatever that something is. I didn't have a something. I didn't know what that was,
Mm.
but I just kind of felt like there must be more. Is this it for me? Like, is this it? Not that I'm complaining, but it feels like there should be more. And my friends took me away to celebrate my 50th birthday, and we're sitting around the table, and one friend says, so, what are your hopes and dreams? And I was like, what? Hopes and dreams? I'm 50. Aren't I done? The only hopes and dreams I had were for my kids, not anything for me.
Very common of moms and wives and
Yep,
dads, for that matter. Yeah,
exactly.
women.
And I thought, hmm. And so all of that kind of got the wheels turning. And I realized after, starting to do a little exploration that no one was coming to save me. If I wanted something to change, I was the one who had to change. I didn't know how, but I just knew I had to start trying.
Beautiful. So it's kind of like a switch flipped in your mind.
It did.
And how did that shift? How did that shift? I'm interested to know how your, what were the next steps after your focus had shift? How did your focus shift?
So since I didn't know what to do, at that point, I was about 100 pounds overweight. And that was at that, I was pretty much at almost the heaviest I had ever been. I had been a little heavier years before, but anyhow. And I thought, well, I don't know what I should be doing, but at 50, now it's not just about how I look. It's about my health. It's about being here for my kids, my future grandchildren, all the things. So this is what I need to take care of first and foremost, and then I'll kind of figure out where I go from there. But I've had a lifelong weight struggle, and I started, my mother took me to my first Weight Watchers meeting when I was 10. And so I've lost and gained thousands of pounds. So I thought to myself, well, something has to be different. I know how to lose weight. I don't know how to maintain weight. I don't know how to, 100 pounds is very daunting. And I decided, okay, and I've tried everything besides Weight Watchers. And again, take yourself back a dozen years ago, not where we are today with the options that are out there. And I thought, well, I'm going to go back to Weight Watchers because out of all of the things that I had been the most successful, but I got to do something different. And I had always approached it with these very concrete analytical goals in mind. Well, I must lose 25 pounds in 3 months, or by the summer, or by my birthday, or, that wedding I have to go to, whatever it is.
Mhm.
And if that didn't happen, if I lost 15 pounds, I'm a failure. That's it. Why do I even try? Instead, I was like, that's not working for you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to a Weight Watchers meeting once a week. This one person was the only option. I'm going to go once a week and that's it. I'm not going to care about how much weight I lose. I'm not going to worry about what I'm eating or exercising, like none of the other things. I'm just showing up. That's the only thing I need to do. And that's what I did for several months. And I didn't lose any weight. I really stuck to that. I wasn't paying attention to what I ate and all the things, but I felt good about it because my goal was showing up and I was doing that. And
Mhm.
so once I had established that habit, then I added, another small piece onto that. Also, baby step. And somewhere along the line, my thinking changed in that this is not a diet. This is a lifestyle, which nowadays is thrown around a lot. Back then, it really wasn't.
Mhm.
And I realized, so I'm never getting off this thing. So that changed my mindset. It doesn't mean that I'm never going to eat pizza, bagels, and ice cream, my three favorite food groups. I will. But I'm not going to eat it every day and I'm not going to eat large quantities of it and all the things. But if I do, if I decide, hey, I want that pizza today, I'm going to eat it and I'm not going to feel guilty.
Mm.
And it doesn't matter if I'm on this for the rest of my life. Does it really matter if I lose 25 pounds in 3 months or I lose the 100 pounds in a year? No, in the long term, it's nothing.
Right.
And so I think it was about maybe 3.5 years later that I was down 90 pounds.
Wow.
And that was about 8 to 9 years ago at this point. And I've maintained that. I've actually gone down a little lower and then I went up a little higher and, you know, probably a little too wide a span. But it's the first time in my life I've ever maintained it. And I took away that it was all about the mindset because Weight Watchers didn't change their program. They
Hmm.
tweak it every couple of years, but that had nothing to do with it. It was all here in my head.
Yeah. And you feel like you're in control of decision now. So was
Yes.
it during that journey or after that journey that the on second thought, maybe I can idea came? Like, was it looking back and seeing what you had accomplished that gave you that?
Nope. If I'm being honest, no. I didn't put it together for a while. From there or during that time, I did start to, I took a, I was listening to a podcast about mindset. I took a course from a woman about mindset. Like I had no idea and really started trying to understand myself and just delve into other things that in the past I never would have said yes to. And it was really someone else that pointed it out to me, that brought it to my attention that this is what I've been doing. It was a man who helped people kind of get shape their story by listening to their own story.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh my gosh, you are so right. And whenever he said that to me, I realized I have always been, and I mean, I know this wasn't a big realization. Anytime anything new was put in front of me, whether it's, oh, try this new recipe. No, I don't cook, so I meant to taste because I don't cook. Try this new recipe, or why don't you want to learn how to ski? Or whatever it is, like it didn't have to be something big. I'd be like, no, no, nope, I can't do that. Nope, I'm not creative. Nope, nope, I'm not good when I have, skis on my feet. Like my right away, no.
Yeah.
And what I learned from these last years is that, okay, that's probably still my first reaction. Maybe not as much as it used to be, but it's waiting. And actually, I heard it today on a podcast. They were like, you can't maybe control your first thought, but you can control your second thought. And that's exactly what this is. I say, oh, wait a second. No, I can't do that. Well, wait a minute. Why
Yeah.
not? Maybe I can, because if you do pull back and you think about it, why can't I? How do you know you can't? How do I know I can't? Maybe I can. And I'm never going to know unless I'm brave enough to try. And
Yeah.
that's what it comes down to is really being brave.
Of course, it does. It comes down to courage and exposing yourself to. We all love our comfort. We love our consistency, right? It keeps life predictable and controllable, and especially somebody who is a linear thinker and works with numbers and primarily in your left brain.
Yes,
That's really high on your list of priorities, so it does take courage to step outside of it, but I think that you hit the nail on the head, exposing yourself to different things, because if you do what you've always done, you're going to get what you've always gotten, right? So it
absolutely.
does require changing the way you do things and the changing the way you live your life in order to see change.
And it's scary. It's
It is
really,
scary,
really
but it's also
scary.
so fabulous too, because
It
you just live
is.
a whole lot more,
Oh
right?
my gosh. And every single thing, like even if it hasn't worked out, and I think that's the thing, that's the mindset switch of thinking I failed. It's like, okay, now I know I don't like that. I never have to try skiing again.
Hmm.
I'm good.
Now
But
you
I can
know.
but I know now, right? I've learned something from that. But
Absolutely.
but the things that when I have faced my fear, they've changed my life.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree. You talk very, very honestly and vulnerably throughout, which is part of the reason why I loved it so much, throughout your book about um, some very personal topics like poor body image and childhood shame and not fitting in. What was the hardest for you to share openly in your writing?
So none of those things were hard.
Mhm.
The hardest thing to share was a story about money.
Mm.
It was not in the original outline. And one day, I think I was meditating or something. I don't know what it was. It must have been. And like some kind of thing popped into my head that you have to share it all. And I wasn't sharing it because it was what I was and still struggle with being incredibly ashamed of and embarrassed by. Everyone knew I had a weight problem. You can pretty much see that, right?
Mm,
And I was okay sharing it because I don't know, I was just very comfortable with that. But this was a different level of, I mean, I remember crying, thinking, my kids, they'll read this, they're going to think differently of me. Good thing is, my kids, they don't care about my books and they haven't read any of my books, but maybe they will someday. I don't know. I think the first one, my youngest one is like, yeah, I read the first chapter. Okay, that's great. The nice thing is it'll always be there,
that's right.
right? That's the good thing. If it's a
When
great
they
thing.
have more of a frame of reference to put to it
Yes,
later.
yes. But I also, it was very vulnerable, and it still is when someone in my community tells me they read my book. I'm thinking, oh gosh, and now they do know everything that I was thinking and all the things. But so I have this, what I feel is a shameful money story, specifically because of my background. And
Hmm.
I think that that's what really makes it shameful. And I can tell you, as I do in that chapter, all of the excuses or the rationalizations that I was telling myself during this time. And I still have some buy-in, but now I know they are excuses. The buck did
Hmm.
stop with me. And because of a variety of reasons, I got uh, ourselves, my husband and I, into quite a financial mess where I owed a lot of money to the IRS.
Mm.
And I don't know if my husband really ever knew, but they wound up putting a lien on my house. And it was horrific. It was horrific.
Yeah, they don't play.
No. Well, it was at that point, it was a lot of money. But prior to that, I had already come to the realization that I've got to deal with this. I was going to have a heart attack over it or a stroke. I mean, it
Hmm.
was awful. The stress level was just beyond. And there was no one I was sharing this with, right? Like I had other people who shared my cousins share my weight struggle. I had other people that I could talk about other struggles with. I didn't share this with anyone. And
Mm.
so to bear this on my own, and every single time that either something came in the mail or it was time for me to pay the bills, and I'm like literally my heart is palpitating just thinking about it. It was really difficult. And so I actually had gone to right before the pandemic, actually February of 2020. Oprah had done like a 10 city tour or something. I don't even remember what it was about. And it was a full day thing. And she had a different celebrity guest at each location. And I saw her in Brooklyn with Michelle Obama, and it was fabulous. And at the end of the day, she shared a very vulnerable story. And this is not verbatim, but the message I heard from her is that you have a secret and you try and push it down, and it starts, like a little teeny bubble, and it grows and it grows, and you keep thinking it's going to go away, it's going to go away, and it grows until basically it erupts and you have no control. Whereas if you take the bull by the horns, it might not be easy and it might not be fun, but at least you're the one in control.
Control.
And I started crying. I was with my cousin. She had no idea why I was crying. And that was when I decided I'm handling this money thing.
Mm.
So it did start there, and that it was 2 years later after I had already been dealing with the IRS for a long time. And they said that wouldn't happen, and it happened. It's all good now, though.
Ooh, I can only imagine like the pressure of, they say death and taxes, right? The pressure of owing the IRS a large amount of money is enough. But then almost feeling like this kind of imposter syndrome because of the industry that you're in, and you're an analytical thinker and you're an expert in this arena, right? I can only imagine how that was compounding on you and just impacting your overall existence.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. We got and I didn't know it was coming. I don't know how I got so lucky. I remember I was upstairs writing. My husband had already been diagnosed, and he was downstairs, and the doorbell rang, and I came running down the stairs because I thought maybe he's lying down. And it was like a certified letter saying they put a lien on my house. And he said, "What is that?" Because I saw it that said IRS. I'm like, "Oh no, don't worry about it." And I
Heart's
like went
pounding.
upstairs
Oh
and
my
oh yeah,
goodness. Mm, wow.
yeah.
There are also a lot of moments throughout your book where you describe internalizing other people's voices. Can you
Oh
kind
yeah.
of tell us about that? And when did you realize those voices weren't yours? This is something that I would safely say the vast majority of people deal with and don't even know it's happening.
So, are you alluding to my mother?
Yep.
Well, look, this has been a journey, and I writing the book, and I think that it helped me kind of process everything with my mom when it came to this, because my mother was thin, tall, thin, active, and I was always active, no matter what my weight was. So that really wasn't the issue. But she didn't understand.
Mm,
She couldn't understand. And so she, now in retrospect, I did not get this then as a kid. In retrospect, I was unhappy. And so she wanted to help me.
mm,
Her way of helping was hiding food so that everyone else, I have one brother, 4 years younger, my parents and my brother knew where the snacks were, but I didn't. I started to learn the hiding spots, but then when I would find it, I'd be like, okay, I'm only going to eat 2 cookies, so no one knows that I found the cookies. And then the next thing you know, there'd only be 2 cookies left in the bag. And then I'd put it back, right, with the 2 cookies or crumbs. And then the next person that found it, it would be like, who ate all these cookies? And then this interrogation would start. And I knew that I was going to get caught because why would anybody else have any reason to lie other than myself? My mother would, uh, put me on these diets and have me eat. Do you know what Melba toast is?
no.
So they must still sell it, but in the 70s it was a thing. So they're like these really hard, dried, disgusting pieces of almost like dried bread, but thin and crunchy, and they're not very big. Like maybe I know people aren't seeing my fingers, but and I would get 2 pieces of those. So maybe it equated to like what half a piece of bread would be like, but not good like bread.
Hmm.
And 1 piece of diet cheese cut in half, one for each slice. And that was my breakfast. And by the time lunch came around, I was ready to eat anything and everything. And
Sure.
so that's what would keep happening to me, is that I wasn't eating enough, or you're only allowed to eat a salad with no dressing after having, this disgusting dry Melba toast with diet cheese on it. And I was extremely resentful. I mean, I was bitter. Why me? My mother was also very tough. She was and is a tough love kind of person, and there's good and bad that comes with that. I think I went over the other way. I overcompensated and I didn't give enough tough love to my kids. I was too easy because I swung the pendulum too far
Hmm.
in
We
the other
always do.
direction, right?
Yep.
Um, But I really had a love-hate relationship because I felt that she was embarrassed of me, about the way I looked. She couldn't understand. We would go to back then, there wasn't plus-sized apartments in stores like there are now. I mean, oh my gosh, none of that existed. I would have to go into like the boys department and try and find husky jeans that would fit me. And there was one horrible store called, I mean, who came up with this name? Trimtown. I mean, come on. And
Vanity sizing.
oh, we would go there and my mother and I would
Yeah.
fight, because I would come out of the dressing room because I couldn't stand how I looked and she would be yelling at me that I don't have the thing on right. And everything was a disaster. And I said to you, I grew up in Long Island and I'm very close with my cousins on my father's side and my aunt, my father's sister. And my aunt has a weight problem and my uncle had a weight problem. All three of my cousins, all girls, had a weight problem and they lived in New Jersey. And I decided that New Jersey is where the fat people lived. So I wanted to, I mean, like neither my father didn't have a weight problem. My brother was a string bean. I felt like I was in the wrong family. I needed to go
Mm.
with my aunt. And my aunt was just much more relaxed and easygoing, and everything was different. And, you know, my aunt would take me shopping sometimes, and I'd go with my cousins, and, it was just comfortable because they understood. They
Hmm.
got it. And the ironic thing is, later in life, both my mother and my brother developed a weight problem. And
Look at that karma coming home to roost, huh?
I always thought with my mother, I'd be like, ha ha. And you
Yeah.
know what? I'm not. I don't like it. It's
Yeah.
really funny. But she lives in Florida now. And my brother and I were just in Florida a month ago. And she hasn't done this in a long time. And she's much heavier than I am. And she was shaming me again. And my brother. I was like, where is this coming from? I haven't heard this in a while.
Yeah, projecting much?
I mean, it was
Wild
crazy.
how that happens, huh?
Yeah,
Well,
really.
because it all comes from a place of insecurity anyway. If she were secure in herself, then she wouldn't have been quite so worried about what your weight looked like.
I have to say, I was very afraid when I wrote the book.
Mm.
I almost thought, I don't think I can publish this book because, look, the last thing that I want to do, I'm a mother, right?
Hmm.
I screwed up my kids.
We
We've
all do.
right.
We
We
all
all
do. Nobody gets out without being screwed up somehow. We
exactly.
all got trauma.
And the last thing I wanted to do was make her feel badly or make her feel like she's a
Mhm.
bad mother or any of those things. Absolutely not. And so I almost didn't do it. And I thought, well, how do I handle this? And, in the end, I tried to prepare her a little bit. And I have to say, she read it and she was very good. And I asked her, so I have to ask you, were you embarrassed that I had, that I was fat? And she said, never for a minute. And I think she meant it. And I thought it's so funny how we just decide on our own what other people are thinking and
It's true.
feeling.
It's true. It's very
Yep.
true.
And I can't believe it took me 50 something years to even ask her that in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I wonder if, again, because we make the assumptions on what people are thinking, you probably didn't want the answer, right?
Probably,
Yeah.
probably. Or to put her in that position, I think. I
Yeah.
didn't put her
Maybe
in that
both.
position to have to lie or
Yeah.
give me the honest answer of, yes, I was embarrassed.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So,
So your book also moves through three distinctly different phases: discovering, developing, and then defining. So
mhm,
is this something that you recognized as it was happening, or is it something that you noticed in hindsight?
hindsight for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. I think, it's like everything when as you get older. And now I think that, sometimes you say to yourself, or at least I do, why did it take me 50 years to realize this, right?
Mhm.
But I think some of us need to take that journey. And like you said earlier, things happen for a reason. So all the things that, when I think about becoming my father's caregiver and starting that journey, and it was extremely, extremely difficult thing to have to manage at a young age,
Mm.
in my 20s, learning what Medicare is and private disability. And,
That's a lot for
no
anybody.
20-year-old
Yeah.
knows what Social Security is, for goodness
Right.
sake. And I was resentful. In one sense, I was always daddy's little girl, so I was proud to step into that role to be there to help him. But then over time, it was like, well, why me? Why am I having to worry about this stuff when my friends are just like off, carefree, living in their 20s like I should be?
Mm.
But yet, looking back, I say to myself, well, you know what? I was so, I don't want to say introverted or shy because I had a big, loud personality with people who knew me. But I was so afraid of being judged because I had been judged my whole childhood by adults and kids for my weight that I tried to make myself small and not be seen. And so I wouldn't ask questions. I never wanted to, I would send my brother, who was like 8 at the time, to like go in a store and order me a soda or something. And I wouldn't do it. And I was
Mm.
still doing that when I was 17 and he was 13. Like he never cared. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. I don't want anyone to see me. I don't. And so the caregiving really helped me grow my confidence
Mm.
and helped me to find a voice that I didn't know I had because I was not going to let my own personal insecurities affect my father's care.
Mm.
And so I had to learn to advocate for him, to talk to doctors, to talk to nurses, to talk to building managers or, facility places where he was in.
Mhm.
And it really did help me evolve as a person. But I didn't know that then.
Sure. Everything does, and sometimes I think it's the harder the lesson, the more growth we get from it. It's just a matter of whether or not you're able to see that in hindsight. Or again, kind of like what we were talking about earlier, do we let it drag us down or do we allow it to propel us to the next level of who we are and who we can be?
Absolutely. And I did that for a long time.
Yeah, well, most of us do. Most of us do. And that's okay. We have to stay in that place for a little while too. Everything happens for a reason.
Yep.
Debbie, did you pick a piece of your book to read for us today?
So it was hard. So I decided that maybe I would just read you the prologue so you could get a sense of, what was going on in my little head.
Great idea. Let's hear it.
Okay. I have been a victim for most of my life. It became my identity. Others would listen to my tales of woe and say, poor Debbie. I was a victim of my circumstances. This was my belief until a few years ago when I came to understand that everyone could call themselves a victim if that's how they chose to live. I had no idea there was an alternative. I hadn't received the memo. I can't pinpoint the exact moment I realized there were other options, but once I did, my life was forever changed. It dawned on me that there might be others out there just like me who hadn't received that memo either, and I needed to make sure they did. What a wonderful and powerful realization. But there was just one problem. How the heck would I find you to tell my story? I could call you, but I don't have your number. I could send you an email, which I could do if you're on my email list. If you're not, why the heck not? But I don't have your address. I needed to figure out how to inspire people and as quickly as possible. I want you to start living the life of your dreams now. So why not write a book? Oh, I had tons of reasons that a book was not the right choice. For years, people would listen to stories about my crazy life and tell me I should write a book. I would laugh because there was not a chance in hell that I would ever write a book. My first thought was, I can't do that. What value would my book bring to others? After all, I don't have this amazing story of being left alone to die on Mount Kilimanjaro and live to tell the tale. And I haven't had one big, horrible trauma, thank goodness, like others who write a memoir. I'm just a regular person living a regular life. I'm riding that same roller coaster as you. Sure, our peaks and valleys might not be the same, but we both have them. My first I can't was because I thought no one would be interested in my story. There's nothing exciting or movie worthy about my life. Boring. My next excuse was, let's face it, I'm not the creative type. I have an analytical mind, and my careers as a CPA and insurance agent were proof of just where my strengths lie. If you're old enough to remember the book or the books, See Dick Run, I pictured myself only capable of writing in that simple three-word sentence format. That's only reason number two. But never fear, there's more. My third excuse was I don't have the time. At this very moment in my life, I am in a deep valley. I'm trying to run my insurance agency while caring for my husband, Gary, who was recently diagnosed with terminal blood cancer. In addition, I have two sons who are on their way to becoming adults, but each of my family members require different levels of care. When I'm not working or running to doctor appointments or trying to talk one of my family members off the ledge, I'm paying the bills, grocery shopping, doing laundry, and taking care of Yogi, our 11-year-old Maltipoo. Write a book? Now? Out of the question. My final excuse is my age. I'm too old to try something new. You know the phrase, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. I'm that 59-year-old dog. I prefer to think of myself as middle-aged, but really, it's hard to picture myself being on Earth at 118 years old. I'm beginning my third and final act, and I'm too old to change. The path for the remainder of my life has already been set in stone. I'm on autopilot, so I should just sit back and try to enjoy what's left of this bumpy ride of life. Clearly, even my excuses can't stop me since you're reading or listening to this book. My goal in life is to no longer give in to the I can'ts, but instead be brave enough to say, on second thought, maybe I can. It's a practice and a journey that I began about 9 years ago. But let's start at the beginning.
That was a good piece to pick.
Thank you.
You do too throughout the book talk about how you shifted from why me to what now.
Mm.
What did that specifically unlock for you?
I would say that that was honestly the biggest aha that I've had is that whole, I didn't understand it and never heard the idea of having a victim mentality. And to me, what that means is that I was blaming all the circumstances of my life or my age, depending, and saying, well, what am I supposed to do? All these things happen to me. I don't have a choice. Like, this is just the way it is. So the chips have to fall where they may. And instead, learning to take responsibility, I learned from Jack Canfield's book, The Success Principles, this formula, since I am a formula person, E plus R equals O, which stands for event plus response equals outcome, meaning something happens, you respond, and together they create the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't like the outcome, you might not be able to change the event, but you can change your response. And I was living E equals O. An event happened, that was just the outcome. Bad event, bad outcome. When you take that R away, you're taking your power away.
Yep.
And that was like, wow. And not that it's meant to make any of us feel badly about the past, because at first it was like, oh man, what a jerk I've been. But no, all right, now that I know this, it's empowering because that means that nothing that happens moving forward, the outcome is never completely out of my control. I always have the say. it gave me back my power. And that changed everything for me.
Yeah. That is incredibly powerful. I've always told my kids that whenever you put yourself in the victim seat, you completely relinquish your power. But that R of response also kind of allows people to shirk responsibility,
Mhm.
right?
Oh,
So
oh
if
yeah.
I don't respond, then I don't have to be responsible for the outcome. But at the end of the day, I mean, even if the outcome isn't what you wanted, or if the outcome is slightly out of your control, that happens too. I firmly believe that these are times in life when we are called almost to a higher purpose. Those are the times when you are called to step up to the challenge of growth.
Yes,
And life is just, I hate to sound so cliche, and I really hate the saying life is too short because sometimes it feels really long, right?
it
But
does.
at the same time, like, it is quite literally what you make of it. Are you going to, like you said, you didn't want to look back and regret your life. And by removing the R from your equation, that's where you're going to end up every single time because you didn't take responsibility and you didn't take control.
Absolutely. And it does, it just it is empowering. It is empowering. And I think it opens up then a world of possibilities,
Mhm.
right? There is no reason, there's no more reasons. The only reason is me.
Mhm.
That's it. So if I'm good living with the way things were, that's on me. That's fine if that's what I want. But if I don't, then stop bitching and start taking some action.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked a little bit ago about how in your book you talk so much about choosing something different from your old patterns. What are some of the hardest choices you've had to make as an adult, and how did that or they change you?
Hmm, that's a rough one. Well, clearly we already know about the weight stuff.
Mhm.
And I think that still permeates that fear of judgment. I'm not good enough.
Mhm.
I was just saying to someone yesterday that I still find it hard to say I'm an author because,
Mhm.
and she said to me, she's also an author, and she said, I consider myself an author, not a writer.
Mhm.
And I said, I guess maybe that would help me
Mhm.
because I feel like, of course, when I reread my book, and we're our harshest critic,
Of course.
and with my second book, I did a little bit better job. But in the first one, I'm thinking, oh, how many times do I say the same phrase? But it's like you write the book in different sections.
Yep.
It's not like you're sitting down and writing it all one time that you realize that, when you wrote chapter number two, that you said that. And now you might write chapter number three 2 months later, because it took me about 2 months to realize I didn't have to write them in order. And that was like a big thing because I thought, oh, well, I just have to do it in order. And then someone in the group was like, no, you don't. And I thought, oh, that's true. Who will know how I wrote it? And that was very freeing for me. So I was very, well, a literary person is going to read this book and trash it. Actually, I'm going way off topic now. Right before the book came out, I got the opportunity to go on a 2-day Zoom call with Jack Canfield, who wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul series,
Mhm.
the president of his company and his publicist. And it was 15 or 16 authors. And you had to send them the book or the manuscript ahead of time. And the idea was they were going to read it and then give you feedback.
Mhm.
But you were online, it was online, you were online listening to everybody's feedback.
Mhm. Like a workshop.
Yep.
Yep.
That you could, gain something from anything that they said. Well, now there's which, by the way, I thought I was going to be like one of the oldest. I was honestly one of the youngest. You cannot believe how many people in their 80s were first time authors, which was awesome.
Yeah.
Well, They went alphabetically. My last name is W. I can't tell you how I was sitting there listening to them talk about other people. Sometimes, they were never cruel, but you could tell whether they liked a book or not, right? And I thought, oh my gosh, what did I get myself into? I can't believe that I like am doing this and they're gonna, I had all these things in my head that they were gonna say. And I think I was either the last or the second to last. And I was so nervous by that time that I was going to leave the meeting before my name was called. And so you have to give a little introduction. I gave my introduction, and then Jack was the first one to speak. And I thought, oh no. And he said, well, I know I'm not supposed to say this, but I think this was one of my favorites.
Oh.
And he remembered a specific story that I wrote about my stepfather and how much he loved it. And he named all the things that he enjoyed so much about the book. And I thought to myself, what do you do this to yourself for?
Mhm,
Right? So even though I've learned all these lessons, it's still a work in progress.
mhm,
And so I think this is an area for me, that self-worth or that judgment piece. And I'll share with you that my second book is called The Sprinkle Effect, and that's out already. But I've had this idea before I wrote The Sprinkle Effect. Instead of writing The Sprinkle Effect, I wanted to write a children's book. And
mm,
I decided on writing The Sprinkle Effect instead. And so in the last 6 months, I've decided that I'm now taking the sprinkle effect idea and want to turn it into a children's book series. And so I've been working on it. And it's totally different than writing a memoir or a self-help book for adults. And I took the plunge, very scared. I signed up for an in-person 2-day conference this weekend for the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. And I'm sitting here thinking, oh my goodness, what are you doing putting yourself in that room when you don't know and I still have the same talk.
mhm.
The difference is I'm aware of it.
That's key. That's key is being aware of it because anxiety, which is what you're describing, regardless
Mhm.
of where it comes from, is addictive. And
Yep,
our brain looks for patterns. And if you are not conscious of these limiting beliefs, if we're not conscious of the limiting beliefs that we have, our brain will automatically find the same pattern and the same pattern and the same pattern. More and more and more of it, like any addiction, it just seeks out more and more. So then before you know it, you're just a big ball of anxiousness. So I say kudos to you for even learning how to observe it and how to recognize it. And even if sometimes you don't necessarily win the battle with yourself the way that
yep,
you would want it to go, at least you saw it. And the
ab-
more you see it, the more you can kind of head it off at the pass. That's more than
exactly.
a lot of people ever get to. Self-awareness is just completely underrated in our society. Like, we're not taught how to regulate our emotions. We're not taught how to regulate our nervous system. We're not taught how to observe our own thoughts. We're taught to just do, just get in and do and make the ends meet and do what it takes. So I would say you're a step ahead of most people in the world.
It took me a long time to get here, and I do recognize it. And I will be going to that conference. And even if I'm sitting there shaking in my boots, I'm going. I am
Well,
going.
congratulations. That sounds exciting. And I want to point out too that not only did you recognize it, but you're helping other people recognize it. And it's sounding to me an awful lot like maybe you might be a writer.
You think?
You might be. You might be.
Thank you, Erin. I appreciate that. I can at least say I'm an author. She at least gave me permission to say, all right, I'm an author. I do have 2 books published. That does make me an author. I'll give you that. But writer, that seems like a lot, heavier a status to assume.
You'll get there. You'll get there. Looking back, what version of yourself are you the most compassionate do you have the most compassion for now?
Oh, the little girl, for sure.
Yeah.
Know, thinking about, some of those hard moments that I faced being judged. And you
Hmm.
alluded to one of the stories in the book, when I was 5 and they told me I wouldn't fit in the dance costume for the lead
Mm.
because back then they had one costume. That was it. Everyone didn't bring their own costumes. I wish. And I ran out and never looked back. I can remember those things. I can remember as, you know, being 3 and feeling uncomfortable. And of course, when I look back at pictures now, I'm like, are you kidding? You were like a cute little chubby girl. Like you
Hmm.
weren't, it was not so bad.
But your frame of reference also was different too, and that your
Yeah.
entire family was thin. So not
Yeah.
only do you recognize physically you look different, but they also recognize that you look different and they don't understand it. I mean that one resonated with me. I That one hit home with me. And I think a lot of people struggle with it. Weight is one of those things that, yeah, it goes everywhere you go.
That's
And it's
right.
not, food is not like, I think most Americans don't have a very healthy relationship with food. I think some of us are blessed with better metabolisms, and some of us have better relationships than others. But in terms of addictions, you have to eat. You can't not eat.
Exactly.
It's not like walking away from a crack pipe or a
Exactly.
cigarette or even alcohol.
Exactly.
Like you have to eat. So it kind of feels like an uphill battle in that regard too, and something that I've battled myself throughout the years with kind of the yo-yo weight going up and down.
Yep.
So I can completely relate. And I do remember from a very young age it was actually when you very first described your very first dance class before you took off, when you walked in and
Yeah.
all
Oh,
the other girls looked a certain way and they were all very thin. I remember that exact feeling. Like I was in that moment of your book with you because I had that exact same experience when I was a little girl. And some of these things just leave impressions that you never forget. I mean, we can choose to integrate them and grow from them, but most of us carry it around like baggage,
and
like
what's
the extra
interesting is,
pounds.
yeah, exactly, is that you'd think like this many years later, over 50 years later, writing that story, that sure, I'm sure some of the specifics had to be made up. I mean, I don't have it's as I remember it.
Sure.
I'm sure there was, not absolute truths, but the feeling, like it was amazing having to put myself back there mentally,
Mm.
how much it hurt, how much it still hurt this many years later. Uh, very, very impactful. All the stories, very surprising. Now that I'm older and I know so much more, and you'd think you have a different vantage point, which I do, but it didn't matter because when I went to retell the story, I felt all the same feelings I did then.
Yeah, the wound is still there.
For sure.
What'd you learn about yourself as a writer,
Well, I
as an
can.
author?
I can write more than 3-word sentences, so that's good.
That's a bonus.
That's a bonus. What I learned is that I write as I talk. So pretty much I could just take this transcript and that's how I write.
Yeah.
I one of the things that I remember, excuse me, thinking was this isn't flowery enough. This isn't descriptive enough. I don't have, I'm starting to worry about all the things as I'm, Googling how to write.
Mm.
And I thought, you know what? What do you like to read, Deb? I like to read. Have you ever read Jennifer Sincero's books like You're a Badass
Nope.
series? Oh
Huh.
my gosh, you have to. They're great. And she's a writer, but she writes and it feels like she's you and I. She's just
Hmm.
talking to me. And it feels like a friend. It doesn't feel like something that I have to unpack some flowery thing to make me have a vision to read now. It took me an hour to think about the first 3 sentences.
Yeah.
I just want something easy, understandable, and relatable. And that's it. That's all I have to be is myself.
And I think that works so well in memoir too, because the main character is you. So
Yeah.
what better way to showcase that character than to do it in your own voice? So I think it works really well for memoir.
Thank you. And I think that that was actually a challenge when I did write the second book. If you read it, it's still kind of part memoir
Yeah, that's
because,
good. I mean, it's a style. It's a
yeah,
style. I know memoirists who have tried to branch out into like fiction or other creative nonfiction, and they really struggle because they're just their lane is writing about themselves.
yeah,
So it's a challenge for
it's
people to
something you
step outside of
know.
it.
It's
It is
what you
something
know.
you know, right? And I think it's also a really good jumping off place for a lot of writers too, because it's something you're very familiar with. If there's anything you're an expert on, hopefully it's you
Yeah.
and your life story, right? So
Uh-huh.
you don't have to worry about all of the knowledge and all of the research and all the study that goes into a different type of book at the same time. So it's a good jumping off point.
Absolutely.
What has surprised you the most since it was published?
Oh boy. Well, if I'm being honest, you're not done, right? You know how you said in the beginning, oh, the whole journey? I thought, oh my gosh, I finished my first manuscript. Done. Wrong.
Nope.
I'm just getting started. You don't just put your book out there and everybody finds out about it. And when it was really daunting and hard after, my family, friends, social media followers, whatever, bought it, how do I go? What do I do from here? I had to keep reminding myself that when we were taking the course and the instructor said, well, what would make you feel like it was worth it? And I think all of us agreed that if one person read the book and it did anything to help them,
Mm,
it's worth it.
it's totally worth it. I think sometimes it's worth it just putting it out on paper for yourself and maybe like for your children someday if they ever decide they want to write it or read it.
Yep.
What do you hope people will take away from it though?
I hope they are inspired to realize that, you know, if you feel that you're done, that this is it, that's because you decided that. There is no excuse, there is no circumstance, there is no age that prohibits you from
Mhm.
changing your life and making it what you want, even when you don't know what you want.
It's a beautiful goal.
It is
Where can people get a copy? Where's the best place?
probably the best place is, of course, it's on Amazon and all the online places. You can also go to my website, debbieweiss.com, and all the links are there as well.
Order it there. Excellent. And they can get your other book there as well if they want to.
Yeah, of course.
So, what else can you tell us about these children's books? What kind of time frame are we looking at? Do you have them written? Where are you at in the process?
So I So now I have to just give you a little bit. The sprinkle effect is the kind of the follow-up because what I learned when I wrote the memoir early on, I had to decide, well, is this a memoir? Is it a biography? Is it a self-help book? I'm like, wait, what? This is too much.
Yep.
And so that I did struggle with that because if it was, am I going to write each chapter of the memoir and then at the end of each chapter, either a little recap of how I'm feeling today or what this taught me, and I chose not to do that.
Hmm.
So there is nothing like that. And so then what people said is, well, okay, that's great. You've started changing your life. What did you do? And
Mm.
so that's where the second book came into to play, and it's called The Sprinkle Effect, and it talks about sprinkling little things into your life that, when combined, make your life more colorful and fulfilling. And the visual is supposed to be rainbow sprinkles because I love rainbow sprinkles on my ice cream. They make me smile, they make me happy, and I'm all about happy and hearts and pink and red and all the things. It's who I am. And so each sprinkle, like a sprinkle of perspective is, I don't even know what color it is. Let's say it's blue, and a sprinkle of courage is red, and a sprinkle of joy is yellow, and all the things. So the idea is to take that concept and then turn it into a series where, not overtly, and this is part of the hard part that I'm learning. Do I want it to be a social, emotional thing for the kids? And so I have in my mind creating like the Sprinkle Squad, which is kind of like a bunch of kids who maybe are not superheroes, but on that kind of idea that help to uncover sprinkles, different sprinkles.
What a brilliant idea. I look forward to it. And so the second one's not technically a memoir, but you said it's written as though it is a memoir. It's written
Yeah,
through
because
the eyes of
yes,
your life, right?
exactly. Because each chapter is pretty short, and it'll just, tell you a little bit about what it is, what's the,
Mhm.
what's mindset, and then a story in my life relating to that sprinkle. And then at the end of each chapter, there are three activities and a journal prompt. And then I created a
Mm.
workbook because, excuse me, I found that when I would be reading books and they would tell you to do the activities, one, I never wanted to do the activities. And what I learned is when you do the activities, that's when it's impactful, not just by
Get more
reading
from it.
it.
Yeah.
But when I would do the activities, I would like pull out this piece of paper this day. And then another day, I'm like, where did I write that other thing on?
Mhm.
So I decided just to create one workbook that has the same activities, prompts, whatever from the book, but all in one place with lines. So you can do it all in one spot and,
Yeah. Great
and always
idea.
be have the one thing to look back on.
Great idea. Maybe we should circle back around at some point in the future and take a look at that one as well.
Well, I would love that. Thank
I
you.
love that kind of stuff. Anything to evolve us as a species. We got to kind of get out of this place that we've been stuck in for a while, I feel like. So, bravo to you for doing the good work.
Well, thank you.
It has been an absolute pleasure chatting with you today.
Oh, you too. Even at
Thanks
this
again.
late hour after my long day, made me smile big time.
Well, I'm happy to hear it, and I definitely appreciate you taking the time. We'll be in touch in the future.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Debbie.
Thanks, Erin.
Bye.
Bye.
That's it for today's episode of For Love of Memoir. Thanks for listening. If something in this conversation moved you, I'd be so grateful if you'd follow the show, leave a comment, or share it with someone you care about. Those small actions tell the algorithm that our content matters so we can reach more memoir lovers like you.